New cell phone networks are apparently interfering with flight patterns here. So we'll talk just a bit about what that means going forward and what they're going to try to push that to mean in the general concourse as we go along. In other news, Senate Democrats believe that Biden's Justice Department will prosecute Donald Trump, and it may backfire. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. Pennsylvania officials are on a video, possibly, and keep in mind that what we're going to read is from the Federalist, possibly saying that election laws were broken in 2020. So we'll talk just a bit about that and what's going on with that. And Starbucks, Chipotle are among companies reducing operational hours because they can't find workers. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, after the show today, I'm back to work. So, well, it has not been fun. I can tell you that. It has not been fun not doing a goddamn thing for a week. Having just enough symptoms there to remind you that you are sick and you're not supposed to be out interacting with other people. That has not been fun in the least. These are 10 days that I wish I could get back right now because, man, I mean, you can sit back and interact with the live chat. You can do that kind of stuff throughout the week here, but man, being around human beings it's really one of the best feelings in the world, and you know you take it for granted until it's not there for you anymore. It's not available to you. You can't go to the grocery store. You can't go to the gas station. You can't go to church. The Reverend texted me, I believe on Monday, asking me, what's going on? Where have you been? And I haven't responded yet, but I mean I got the coop, and that was part of it. That first day, I looked up, I said, well, let's see. I got a little bit of a wet cough. I don't have any fever or anything right now, but I've got a little bit of a wet cough, and I've been around people who've been COVID positive for the entire week. I'm guessing my number is up here pretty soon. So that all turns back around, going back to work, going back and enjoying it out there, and doing my job, and figuring out what happened in the last week while I was gone, and on the unplanned point of it, I know that they did better when it was a planned point of me being gone, but seeing how it was on the unplanned point of me being gone, seeing what's left there for me and what kind of fun I have to see for that here. So we'll enjoy that, but that's going to be for me, not for you guys. We got to get down in the news, so let's get started. But before we get started, make sure you guys go check out turnsandpagesproductions.com. We have a start page waiting for you guys here right now. We are not ready to get launched yet here, but do keep in mind that you can go and check out great shows such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Freckles and Brit Show, and The Porch Boys. Go check out all those shows. They're all great friends to liberty. They're all great friends to the cause. And they're great people to go back and watch, so definitely go and bookmark all of their stuff. Go check out their Twitter, their social media, and everything else they have going along with that as well. They're great people. They definitely are. And we will go and hang out with them as possible as well. I know I couldn't make it through the Porch Boys last night because by 9 o'clock I was in bed with Porch Boys playing on the Chromecast, but I was just in bed and out by 9 o'clock last night. So go check all of them out. They're all great friends, and go check out the website. Something cool is coming soon. All right. Well, let's have a look at the Dow. The Dow spent the entire day down yesterday, down to 35,368.47. That was down another 543.34 points, or 1.5% down. So it looks like there were some things that were weighing on there. It looks like some stronger earnings may cause this to come back and bounce back. I don't know if we'll jump right back up to 36,000 once again. But it's going to be worth watching and seeing where the markets go, especially if the futures are any indication coming off of this. Looking in at your Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is at 42,305.90. That is down 63 US dollars and 80 US cents. So down just a little bit over 0.1% throughout the day yesterday. Looks like we're going to hold steady at the 42,000 mark for a little while, so we'll watch and see where that goes and see if there's some sort of big spike coming back in off of that. Looking in at your scrap metal prices. Copper on the average is up, steel is down, aluminum is up. Individually, it looks like all copper plays are up right now. Conduit steel is up. Did I say all copper plays were down? I meant all copper plays are up. Wow, I can really talk this morning. All copper plays are up right now. Conduit steel is up. Stainless steel is also up, but light iron, number one steel, cast iron, rotors, complete car, shuttable steel are all down. Looking in at aluminum, regular aluminum radiators are down. Sheet aluminum is down. Siding is up. Aluminum copper fin is up. Cans are up. Rims are up. And looking in at some of the other plays that we look at here, electric motors are up. Ballasts are up. Lead is up. Car and truck batteries are up, so that's a turn right there. Cats continue to be mixed with small foreign, large foreign, and large GM all up. Regular domestic and small GM are all down. Compressors are up. Alternators are up. Carbide is down. Hard drives are down. Motherboards are up. Power supplies are down. Low-grade boards are down. And PC tower is down. So some mix in the scrap market here, some mix in the industrials, and we will see where the demand for product is as we go along there. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. IBD Virtual Trading Summit, Saturday, January 22nd. I'm probably not going to be there. From Investors Business Daily, natural gas stock fuels buy point, earns top Dow Jones ESG award in oil and gas industry. From Matthew Galgani. In 2021, ESG and natural gas leader Williams ranked number one among its oil and gas industry peers on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. Now WMB stock aims to power a new breakout as the energy sector tries to buck pressure in the stock market indices. Also known as sustainable investing, ESG investing focuses on how well companies address environmental, social, and governance issues. Last year, Williams earned the top billing in its industry peer group in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. Indeed, it was the only U.S. energy company included in DJSI's World Index. Several other ESG rating groups also acknowledge Williams' commitment to sustainability, climate change, and other social corporate responsibility issues. Among them, S&P Global Platts named Williams the winner of its 2021 Award of Excellence, midstream noting leadership in addressing its climate change. S&P Global Platts recognized how Williams continues to incorporate solar power, renewable natural gas, and green hydrogen into its existing energy infrastructure network. Sustainalytics, that's a word, CDP and MSCI also acknowledged Williams for its ESG and sustainability initiatives. Adding to its accolades, WMB stock has also earned a spot on the IBD Breakout Stocks Index. Fellow energy stocks Royal Dutch Shell, Occidental Petroleum, Continental Resources joined Williams and several other oil and gas plays on the index. So it's not what we normally look at with this. We normally look at seeing what the futures are, what the markets did off of this, but this is going to be something that's going to affect where we go as far as industry, possibly not short term, but industry, fueling of the industry, heat for our homes, and going through with our vehicles and manufacture that goes along with that as well. And if they are continuing to reward sustainability, and in fact we continue to raise sustainability, that will hold some of the costs for energy back down, which is something this economy that we're in right now desperately needs. Because energy is what's spiraling around and hurting everything else off of this. So definitely something to look at and see where we're going with that and what happens with that. But let's go in, let's see what CNBC has to say. On the futures, stocks are set to bounce after better than expected earnings. Dow futures are up 100 points. From Maggie Fitzgerald. U.S. stock futures were higher early Wednesday, following a sell-off on Wall Street triggered by surging bond yields. Dow futures rose 100 points after being down more than 200 earlier. S&P 500 were up 0.4%, while NASDAQ 100 futures rose 0.7%. Futures were boosted by a slew of strong corporate earnings. Bank of America beat Wall Street estimates as it released pandemic-related loan loss reserves. Shares rebounded 3% after a day after sliding 3.4%. 2%. Morgan Stanley saw its stock rise 1.5% to the bank's fourth quarter profit. Top estimates, it also experienced a 13% jump in equities trading revenue. Procter & Gamble shares rose slightly after the consumer giant reported fiscal second quarter earnings and revenue that topped Wall Street's expectations. The company raised its outlook for sales growth. Home builders were broadly lower in early trading following after Key Bank downgraded the group on concerns over looming interest rate hikes that will drive up borrowing costs. Shares of Sony tumbled in pre-market trading, falling 4.7%, the day after Microsoft said it's buying video game publisher Activision Blizzard for nearly $69 billion. Sony's PlayStation competes with Microsoft's Xbox consoles. The drop in Sony stock comes after shares slid 7.2% on Tuesday. The U.S. futures broadly moved higher Wednesday, even though government bond yields were slightly higher, with the 2-year note rising 1.06% and the benchmark 10-year yield near 1.89%. The Treasury yield is almost 2% still. On Tuesday, the Dow lost more than 540 points, dragged down by a 7% drop in Goldman Sachs. The Wall Street Bank missed analysts' expectations for earnings as operating expenses surged 23%. Its shares recovered slightly in the pre-market, up nearly 0.5% after lopping 170 points from the blue chip index on Tuesday. The S&P 500 declined 1.8%. The NASDAQ composite, full of interest rate sensitive technology stocks, was the relative underperformer, dipping 2.6%. The NASDAQ closed its lowest level in 3 months as investors feared how quickly the Federal Reserve will hike interest rates. Bond yields continue their year-to-date climb on Tuesday, with the 10-year Treasury yield topping 1.87%, its highest level in 2 years. The 10-year yield started the year around 1.5%, and meanwhile the 2-year rate, which reflects short-term interest rate expectations, topped 1% for the first time in 2 years. So we will see what goes with this. It is looking like some of the futures are pointing higher, but I'm not sure where this goes and where this ends. So we'll continue to watch and see. The earnings, I think, are going to hold the Dow up. The S&P is going to stay around the middle, and the NASDAQ might drop yet still. So we'll see what happens with that. The 2-year yield breaking above 1% in this bond market is saying it agrees with the Fed that more aggressive hikes are coming, said Ryan Dietrich of LPL Financial. Add those worries with crude flirting with $85 a barrel and stubbornly high inflation, and we have the perfect cocktail for a risk-off day. So that's what we see coming from that. A lot of stuff moving in the markets here. Let's get into some of the big news of the morning. We're going to start with a little bit of breaking news from last night. Actually happened while the Porch Boys were on, and no details have been released about it yet, by the way. But Tim Pool tweets out at 9:03 p.m. January 18th, 2022 on Twitter for Android, "We got swatted again." So again, we don't know at this point what happened. We don't know if they were, I don't know if they were live when they were doing this. Were they doing Timcast IRL last night? When this happened, is this a copycat of some sort? What happened with this? The police come in and sweep? Did somebody come back out? Did somebody start shooting? Nobody has any idea at this point what happened with this, but we will continue to watch this and see where it goes. But why? Why SWAT? That's what we need to sit back and figure out. Why SWAT? I don't understand what the reasoning is behind that. Behind putting people in danger to prove a political point. Is it just to get some of these people to come out and quit? Because they feel like they're in danger? Do you think that's actually going to happen? I don't think it's going to happen. But yes, as of last night, according to Tim Pool, he has been swatted again. Alright, let's start with this one here from the New Scientist. And I found this to be a little bit interesting. Will 5G mobile networks in the U.S. really interfere with aircraft? U.S. telecoms companies plan to turn on 5G networks across the U.S., but airline bosses warn that potential interference with planes could cause a catastrophic crisis. From Matthew Sparks. Now, I'm very confused by this. Because as far as I know, we've had 5G networks out for 3 years already. I could turn around if I had wanted to on my Note 10, which I thought that I did when I started out. And then I guess it just turns out I never did, but I could turn around and have 5G turned on for my phone. And I could since the time I bought it. It was released specifically to be one of the first 5G handsets out there. US Cellular has 5G in a lot of big markets. I think they have it almost everywhere at this point. Verizon does. They have it in all kinds of at least big markets. They've got it in a lot of smaller markets too at this point. And we're just figuring this out now? Is that actually what's happening here? I don't know. Let's read on. Because I'm very surprised by this. Apparently we can't read on. Because this is scrabbled behind a paywall. But what we can do is we can read from Reuters instead. US FAA clears 45% of commercial plane fleets after 5G deployed. From David Shepardson. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration said Sunday that it cleared an estimated 45% of the U.S. commercial airplane fleet to perform low-visibility landings at many airports where 5G C-band will be deployed starting on Wednesday. The FAA has warned that potential interference could affect sensitive airplane instruments such as altimeters and make an impact on low-visibility operations. U.S. passenger and cargo airlines have been sounding the alarm to senior government officials that the issue is far from resolved and can severely impact flights and the supply chain. Even with the approvals granted by the FAA today, U.S. airlines will not be able to operate the vast majority of passenger and cargo flights due to the FAA's 5G-related flight restrictions unless action is taken prior to the planned January 19th rollout, said Airlines for America, a trade group representing American Airlines, Delta Airlines, FedEx, and other carriers. The FAA approved the two radio altimeter models used in MIDI, Boeing, and Airbus planes, including some Boeing 737, 747, 757, 767, MD-10, 11, and Airbus A310, A319, A320, A321, A330, and A350 models. The announcement came just days before AT&T and Verizon launched new 5G services on Wednesday. The FAA says it expects to issue more approvals in the coming days. The FAA said the aircraft and altimeter approvals open runways at as many as 48 of the 88 airports most directly affected by 5G C-band interference. But the agency warned that even with these new approvals, flights at some airports may still be affected. Reuters reviewed the 36-page list of the runways covered by the approvals that has not yet been made public, and it does not include many larger U.S. airports. The FAA told Boeing in a letter Sunday, reviewed by Reuters, that it was granting approvals for specific runways and planes with certain altimeters because the susceptibility to interference from 5G C-band emissions has been minimized. AT&T and Verizon, which won nearly all the C-band spectrum in an $80 billion auction last year, on January 3rd agreed to buffer zones around 50 airports to reduce interference risks and take other steps to reduce potential interference for 6 months. They also agreed to delay deployment for 2 weeks, averting an aviation safety standoff. The FAA on Thursday issued nearly 1,500 notices detailing the extent of potential impact on 5G services. Passengers should check with their airlines if weather is a forecast at a destination where 5G interference is possible, the FAA said on Sunday. On January 7th, the FAA disclosed the 50 U.S. airports that will have 5G buffer zones, including New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Las Vegas, Minneapolis, Detroit, Dallas, Philadelphia, Seattle, and Miami. But airlines warn those buffer zones may not be enough to prevent flight disruptions at those airports. I thought we figured this out like 3 years ago. I was completely to the understanding that this was all figured out, that everybody knew what the risks were, what the benefits were, and determined that 5G wasn't a problem like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, Randy says almost zero chance that 5G would affect the planes. Yeah, why is this now? Why is this suddenly going to be a thing now? I mean, this has been a technology open, out in the world, for 3 years. But apparently somebody finally complained enough, so we've got to come back out and make a new study and maybe see if you can actually use your 5G in the airport. We'll see what happens with that and where that goes. It's weird to me. I mean, there's so many airports around everywhere anyway. I believe in Wisconsin you have to have an airport in every county just for emergency landings and nothing else. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, usually these airports are in the major cities that already have the 5G rollout. So I don't know. I don't know what's happening with this, but it's big enough that the FAA's had to get involved, and now Verizon and AT&T are wondering whether or not they can put their 5G C-band in. We'll see what happens with that. Let's grab one from Newsweek, something on the January 6th committee. Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell subpoenaed by 1-6 committee. Will they comply? From Danielle Villarreal. The House Committee investigating the January 6th selfie fest has subpoenaed Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell, and Boris Epstein, all attorneys in the 2020 re-election campaign of then-President Donald Trump. It's unclear whether any of the former Trump attorneys will comply with the committee's subpoenas. Many of Trump's former associates, like former White House advisor Steve Bannon and former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, haven't. Some invoked the Fifth Amendment to avoid testifying. The four individuals advanced unsupported theories about election fraud, pushed efforts to overturn election results, or were in direct contact with the former president, the committee wrote in a Tuesday evening tweet. After the 2020 election, Giuliani and Powell both claimed that the voting machines had been rigged to steal the election from Trump. Giuliani has since said that he didn't have time to make sure the claims were true. He and Powell were being sued by voting machine manufacturers for their baseless claims. Also following the election, Jenna Ellis claimed that enough evidence existed to decertify the 2020 election results in at least 5 states. Epstein, who served as a senior advisor for Trump's 2016 campaign and assistant communications director for surrogate operations in Trump's White House, was also a member of a DC-based command center team that sought to prevent Congress from certifying Trump's election loss, the Washington Post reported. Democrats feared that if Trump's associates don't face legal consequences for stonewalling the committee before the 2022 midterm elections, Republicans could regain control of the House and end the committee's attempts to pressure them into testifying. Really, that's your fear? You're kind of saying the quiet part out loud here, aren't you, Newsweek? They're afraid that if Republicans win back the House, then Democrats won't be able to pressure people with subpoenas and criminal charges and everything else. You probably should have worded that differently, Newsweek. Holy shit. Congress has the power to sue those who have ignored subpoenas, but has yet to take this action against any Trump associate. Regarding Bannon and Meadows, the committee handed its contempt citation to the Department of Justice for persecution. In November of 2021, the DOJ indicted Bannon on 2 counts of contempt of Congress for defying the committee's subpoenas and refusing to answer its questions. Bannon's defense team has attempted to delay the resulting court proceeding until near the 2022 midterms. Meadows has not yet been indicted. He has sued the committee and claimed that the conversations while working in the White House are protected by executive privilege. Other Republican Congress members may soon face their own pressure to comply with committee's orders. Illinois Republican Representative and committee member Adam Kinzinger has said that the committee would absolutely subpoena his Republican colleagues to testify if necessary. Dude, you're not a Republican anymore, Adam Kinzinger. You're not. Your Twitter reflects that at this point. Everything reflects that at this point. You ran as a Republican, basically in name, to hold on to the Rockford section of Illinois until they got rid of your district, and now you're sitting back here crying and hoping that you still get to play in office in one of the new districts, when I don't think that you will. But there's the subpoena. I don't know what they're doing other than coming back out here and trying to find anything that they can find on everybody. They can't be looking for justice anymore at this point. There's no way. They're going after Giuliani, Sidney Powell, everything else off of this. Well, I'm sure they're looking to get Giuliani up there so he says something fucking crazy and they can release that coming up in the 2024 election. Because that's what they seem to be most afraid of, most terrified of, is what's coming up in 2024. But I do believe that some of this is going to flow over, like they said in the article, to 2022 as well. Because, like Randy just said, it looks like that if the Republicans do take the House, then this entire committee just gets disbanded because it's not doing anything. This whole thing has been investigated to death. The FBI found that there was no insurrection. And now we have a bunch of bitter partisans that are looking to find a reason that there was an insurrection. But that's what they see coming off of that. Shifting gears here, McCarthy accuses Biden admin of downplaying Texas terrorist attack. Well, he should take another finger and point it at the mainstream media too, because remember, we didn't see a word of that until after the dude was dead. From Andrew Mark Miller. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy accused the Brandon administration of downplaying a terrorist attack within our borders following a deadly hostage standoff at the Texas synagogue over the weekend. Oh, but you're downplaying the January 6th terrorist attack. And before some Democrats starts yelling that at Kevin McCarthy. Over the past 48 hours, President Biden's Justice Department has gone from denying the clear and religious anti-Semitic implications of this attack to now backtracking to what we all knew to be true, the California Republicans said in a Tuesday statement, explaining the actions of the Brandon administration's response to the synagogue standoff. The confrontation left the hostage taker, a Muslim British immigrant named Malik Faisal Akram, dead and several hostages unharmed. According to McCarthy's statement, the Biden administration needs to explain. Why were Biden officials downplaying the terrorist attack within our borders? Why did the FBI initially disregard the role anti-Semitism played in this hostage situation? What indications were missed in the lead up to this attack because resources were redirected to other areas? How was it that someone with an apparent criminal record and suspicious travel history was allowed in the U.S. to begin with, and what national security concerns remain? Well, I mean, if you kick a Muslim out, no matter what the criminal history looks in, I mean, that's racist, Kevin McCarthy. You can't do that. That's Islamophobic. McCarthy called on the admin to answer for how this case has already been mishandled and provide a clear strategy on how they plan to continue to investigate the outstanding terror threats. Biden called the incident an act of terror Sunday afternoon. White House Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobblehead responded to McCarthy, "Video can be inconvenient when attempting to launch a political attack." So at this point, I mean, this is going to be another one of those things. It's going to be pure politics. Nobody cares about the fact that a good Irish Catholic named British national, a person with a good Irish Catholic name, Faisal Akram, Malik Faisal Akram, just walked in and held hostages. But it's a political attack. So that's what we see off of that. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Senate Democrats believe Biden's Justice Department will persecute Trump and warn it could backfire. From Ryan Saavedra. Senate Democrats reportedly believe that there's a good chance that the Democratic President, Joe Biden's DOJ, will pursue criminal charges against former President Trump over the events that took place during the Selfie Fest on January 6, 2021. Given the weight of public evidence, Democratic lawmakers think Trump committed federal crimes, The Hill reported, but Senate Democrats also warned that AG Merrick Garland needs to proceed cautiously Any persecution that fails to convict Trump risks becoming a disaster and could vindicate Trump, just as the inconclusive report by former special counsel Robert Mueller's team was seized upon by Trump and his allies to declare his exoneration on a separate series of allegations. The publication cited several senators whom it talked to, including Richard Blumenthal, Tim Kaine, and Sherrod Brown. Blumenthal claimed that clearly what Trump did leading up to the riot falls in the ambit of what's being investigated and perhaps is criminal. They have all the evidence at their disposal, Kaine said, later adding, "My sense is they're looking at everything in a diligent way and they haven't made a decision." Kaine said that he thinks that there were federal statutes that are very much implicated by what happened, although he did not name any. Brown said, "I think anyone who it's proven had a role in planning the January 6th selfie fest should be persecuted, not just people who broke in and smashed the windows in my office and others. I think anyone that's shown to have had a role in planning absolutely should be persecuted," Brown claims. "I mean, it was treason, trying to overturn an election through violent means." Okay. Well, let's look at some of the people that have been involved in planning the selfie fest. When do you think the Capitol Police officers made the decision to hold the doors open for everybody and let them walk in? When do you think that happened? Because I guarantee you that didn't happen in the moment. I guarantee you there was some forethought that went along with that. When did the velvet ropes go up that the people walked so calmly through? When did that happen? Could that be planning? And what about the mysterious denial of National Guard troops that everyone says did or didn't happen depending on the political party that they support at the time? If that's true, I mean, who do you go after for this one? Because I do see that there is enough out there to suggest that this entire thing was set up and planned in order to make certain people look bad. I don't have enough evidence to say that it's actually convictable yet, but I'm saying that there's enough evidence there that we could at least start asking some fucking questions. The report highlighted recent remarks from Garland, who said, "The Justice Department remains committed to holding all January 6 perpetrators at any level accountable under law, whether they were present that day or were otherwise criminally responsible." One Democratic senator, who wished to remain anonymous, warned that if the Biden Justice Department pursued criminal charges against Trump, that all it would take is one pro-Trump juror to derail the conviction, which could then blow up in the admin's face, especially if Trump were to run again in 2024. If you pull the trigger on this one, you have to make sure that you don't miss, because this is one, if you miss, essentially validates the conduct, the senator said. The report comes as New York AG Letitia James claimed in court filings on Tuesday night that the Trump organization engaged in fraudulent or misleading practices. Yeah, the organization, not the man. So, yeah, they're going to put... This is not about what they think that he did for January 6th or what he did in office. They're finding any reason that they can to put this man into some sort of handcuff because their rabid base is begging for it. Because they stood back and told their rabid base that this person was going to prison. All we have to do is wait. He's going to prison. It's going to happen. Now they actually have to produce something off of this. All right, let's talk about Maxine Waters. Representative Maxine Waters says pro-filibuster senators Manchin and Sinema don't care about whether or not they undermine the rights of minorities and blacks in this country. From Alex Nitzberg. Look at that. Look at that scary face. Democratic Rep. Maxine Waters of California recently claimed that Senators Manchin and Sinema don't care whether or not they undermine the rights of minorities and blacks in this country. While Democrats want to change the filibuster rules in order to ram so-called voting rights legislation through the Senate, Manchin and Sinema have frustrated other members of the party by publicly opposing the idea of targeting the filibuster. We have two Democrats, Manchin and Sinema, and they are holding up the Democratic agenda, Waters declared during an interview on MSDNC. The Congresswoman said the senators have chosen to back the filibuster and don't care whether they undermine the rights of minorities and blacks in this country. They don't care about no minorities. They don't care about no blacks. They don't care about people in their own districts who they're going to deny their voting rights and undermine their voting rights, Waters said.
I need some music.
Manchin and Sinema have both made it crystal clear that they're unwilling to support the weakening of the filibuster, allowing one party to exert complete control in the Senate. With only a simple majority, will only pour fuel on the fire of political whiplash and dysfunction that is tearing this nation apart, especially when one party controls both Congress and the White House, Manchin said in a statement last week. As such, and as I've said many times before, I will not eliminate or weaken the filibuster. So that's what it is that she had to say about that, which, you know, that's the standard line at this point. And good on Manchin, too, by the way, for looking at this and hearing how racist he is and looking back and saying, fuck you. You know, that used to be a complete showstopper back in the day, not that long ago. Somebody came out, especially if you were a public figure, excuse me, if you're a public figure in government somewhere, and somebody came out and just called you a racist, there was nothing for somebody to come back down and cower down and say, okay, no, please don't call me a racist. And yes, it's absolutely good on these people now, where they can come back out and say, no, fuck you, I'm not a racist. Do something about it. You could say that all you want, that word is starting to lose its meaning. And Maxine Waters comes from the old guard of the House, where she knows that she can get away with doing something like that. Oh, well, if you don't do this, then I'll corner you at a gasoline station, and I'll call you a racist, and I'll make sure that everybody knows that you're a racist. Byron Donald slams Maxine Waters' completely outrageous attack on Manchin and Sinema from Fox News. This comes from Fox News staff. Florida Republican Byron Donald slammed Maxine Waters Monday for her criticism of moderate Democrat Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, who refused to change the filibuster to allow voting rights legislation to pass. Waters said that the two senators don't care about minorities and black people in an MSDNC interview on Sunday. And this is what Donald's had to say. I just think it's completely outrageous. It's not based on facts. The reality is that what she and the Democrats want to pass by breaking the filibuster, something, by the way, that they have defended every single year that the Senate has been in existence up until right now, what they want to do is basically have the federal government take over all elections in the U.S. So if you think that's the Democratic agenda and that's supposed to be good for Americans, I completely disagree with you. And I think that Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema are doing the right thing by maintaining the filibuster, because its purpose is to protect the minority voices in the U.S. Senate. We're not a pure democracy, we're a constitutional republic. The filibuster is one of those mechanisms that helps to maintain the republic. And absolutely right. And once again, we are reminded, of course, of the fact that if they had eliminated the filibuster when they said they were going to right off in the beginning, this nice little Nord Stream 2 sanction that Ted Cruz proposed and put up for a vote last week, I mean, it still was dead on the way to the White House. It's probably dead in the Senate, or in the House itself. It was dead in those two places, but it would have passed the Senate. It would have passed the Senate 55-44. But they used that evil Jim Crow relic, the filibuster, to stop it.
Good.
More Manchin news here. Alabama football coach Nick Saban urges West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin to support the Freedom to Vote Act. From Alex Scarborough. Alabama football coach Nick Saban was among a handful of sports figures from West Virginia to sign a letter urging Joe Manchin, a Democrat, to support the passage of the Freedom to Vote Act. The letter, which was made public on Monday, was also signed by NBA Hall of Famer Jerry West, former West Virginia Athletic Director Oliver Luck, former NFL All-Pro Darryl Talley, and former NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue. Manchin and Sinema, also a Democrat, have also thus far refused to support making the filibuster exception for the voting rights bill. Without the 60 votes to overcome the filibuster, proposed legislation can be kept off the Senate floor indefinitely. Last week, Manchin released a statement reiterating his commitment to neither eliminate nor weaken the filibuster, the consequences of which, he said, would only pour fuel onto the fire of political whiplash and dysfunction that is tearing this nation apart. According to CNN, Saban asked to include a footnote in a letter that said he is not in favor of getting rid of the filibuster and that he believes this will destroy the checks and balances we have in our democracy. CNN reported that the footnote said the other signees of the letter take no position on this aspect of Senate policies. The Freedom to Vote Act aims to expand voter registration and voting access while limiting the removal of voters from the voter rolls. It would also establish Election Day as a federal holiday. I still don't. That still makes absolutely no sense to me. If you've ever worked at a gas station, and while you were working at that gas station, when did you ever get federal holidays off? Or in a restaurant, especially in a tourism town. When do you get federal holidays off? We strongly support urgently needed legislation that will protect both the rights of voters and the integrity of outcomes in all federal elections. The letter to Manchin said the Freedom to Vote Act, which is sponsored with committee chair Amy Klobuchar and other colleagues, effectively addresses these goals. We also support your leadership in shaping legislation to secure our democracy by protecting election integrity, principled presidential transitions, and our national security during transitions. So, and one of these things that goes along with this is, one of the things we've heard from Manchin is the fact that he can't vote for some of this stuff because it's not popular among the constituents in West Virginia. Which I legitimately believe it's not. I don't believe that that would be popular among West Virginians. But what I can see with something like this as we go, what I can feel coming off from something like this is, as we look, as we watch, and as we see what happens with all this, one of the things to note about this is they're trying to show that this is actually popular among West Virginians. Nick Saban, while he's an Alabama coach now, is a former West Virginian. You know, they're looking for all these big celebrities of people who were West Virginians originally to come out and say, no, see, look, all the West Virginians love it. Hey, look at all these big celebrities that we have here doing this. And meanwhile, I just wish that ESPN would go back to reporting sports. Alright, let's look at the the Federalist. Now, keep in mind the Federalist is not a green check verified source. But there's enough of a jumping off point here that it's time to come back and actually look at this and talk about what's happening here in this. Now, no green check verified sources, if this is true, is going to pick this back up. I guarantee it. But it's at least worth looking into here, so let's read from the Federalist. Video shows Pennsylvania official admitting election laws were broken in 2020. From Margot Cleveland. This video provides yet another example of the widespread voter violations of election law during the last presidential election. Honk honk, nothing bad happened. So we're actually going to follow the law this time. Delaware County, Pennsylvania's Christina Perrone told fellow election-related workers during a Zoom meeting after the November 2020 election. This video, the latest obtained by the Federalist, provides yet another example of widespread violation of election law during the last presidential election. Regina Miller, a contract worker for the large Pennsylvania county, filmed the video of the April 7, 2021 Zoom meeting, which involved voting officials discussing plans for the upcoming elections. According to sources familiar with the recording, the video began with Perrone, who, according to a lawsuit filed against her, other Delaware County officials and the county served as a project manager for the county, saying that they would talk about that offline with the "that not specified." I guess let's listen.
So why don't we talk about that offline, because Jim and I had a brief conversation today, and this time it's much different than last time because we're going to have them sign oaths, they're going to need W-4s, and we need them to sign something allowing them to somebody else to pick up. So we're going to actually follow the law fully this time. And so there's a lot more stuff in our letters.
So, just a brief sentence off of there, ending in, we're going to follow the law fully this time, which, I mean, I've got questions about that, obviously. I've got major questions about that because, I mean, did you not follow the law fully last time? The Federalist contacted Delaware County, inquiring on the identity of Jim and the other participants in the call, and seeking comment on the videos filmed by the whistleblower. The public relations director for the Pennsylvania County, Adrian Moravsky, stated this is a matter involving pending litigation. The county was not responding to press questions. Moravsky added, however, that the county is confident that the elections in 2020 and 2021 were conducted fairly and fully complied with state and federal laws. Perrone seemed to think otherwise, at least according to her comments in the Zoom video. So, this is just a 27-second clip, too. That's the other side of that. That's a 27-second clip. We don't know what happened with that at this point. We don't know what the context was leading into that or anything else off of this. But it does raise questions, especially if you are talking to election officials, where now you've got to ask the question of, hey, what was this illegal last time, or was this still legal? But there again, Federalist, not green check verified. So do take that with the appropriate grain of salt. Another one from the Post Millennial, also not green check verified. Red Wave poll shows dramatic shift in party preference from Democrat to Republican at the end of 2021. From James Anthony. A recent poll by Gallup released on Monday shows more than a double-digit shift in party preference at the U.S. national level, shifting the balance in favor of the Republicans. Gallup reports that the last time they performed the same poll in Q1 2021, the American public skewed 9% in favor of the Democrats. This most recent poll, however, in Q1 2021, shows that Republicans are now favored by 5%. That should be Q4 2021, the second time. These results are based on aggregated data from all U.S. Gallup telephone surveys in 2021, which included interviews with more than 12,000 randomly sampled U.S. adults, states Gallup's website. Respondents are asked if they identify as Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, and if they respond that they're independent, they're asked a follow-up question of whether they lean more towards one party or the other. Gallup also mentioned that gaps of even 5% or more are among the largest appearing in their data since they first started performing these surveys in the year 1991. Significant advantages for the Republican Party like this are also relatively rare in the history of this poll. In fact, the last time they had this strong an advantage was in early 1995. Many are saying that the first year of the Brandon administration has been disastrous, and that issues such as inflation, the border crisis, and the admin's handling of the pandemic are big factors in the current surge of Republican popularity. And there are other things to keep in mind with this too. I mean, this is not just them coming out and showing you that, oh, hey, everything's hunky-dory now because Republicans lead by 5% in a generic poll. There are some things to keep in mind with this. Number one, this is one poll by one polling company. This is Gallup. Always check for an aggregate first before you come back out and say these are definitive numbers. Now, no, this does not look good for Democrats at this point coming into the midterms right now. But there are going to be 2 more polls like this before the midterms that are done just by Gallup itself. They do this every quarter. So there are going to be 2 more polls like this. These are not representative of the entire nation as a whole, and individual states are going to be affected, and individual districts are going to be affected more than the vast majority of a generic nationwide congressional ballot. So, something to definitely watch, that's for sure. Something to pay attention to, and, maybe strike while the iron is hot, but it's not looking good for Democrats right now either. From Just the News, Joe Biden's Jim Crow 2.0 tour collides with reality. Blacks strongly support voter ID. From John Solomon, with drama and fury, President Brandon declared the nation on Martin Luther King Jr. Day that state laws requiring voter ID or banning mass mailing of absentee ballots amounted to an assault on our freedom to vote, especially for minority Americans. 4 days earlier, a poll in Michigan told a different story. 3/4 of the battleground state voters supported ballot ID requirements, with black voters expressing the highest support at 79%. Those findings have been confirmed in national polls as well, exposing a dilemma for Democrats in Washington, who are making a last-ditch effort to pass legislation gutting many state and local controls of elections in favor of federal standards. Those standards, like banning voter IDs, imposing no excuse absentee voting, and making it harder to clean outdated voter rolls, are not what the majority of Americans are seeking. A recent national survey found that 4 key election reforms are supported by more than 80% of voters. Pollster Scott Rasmussen recently wrote in an article highlighting the disconnect. These include removing people who have died or moved from voter registration lists, requiring all voters to show photo ID before casting a ballot, wanting all ballots received by Election Day, and having all voting machines made in the United States. In Rasmussen's latest national poll on the issue, 78% of African American voters supported voter ID. But it's so racist! It's racist to need an ID! Such public sentiments impose a harsh reality check on Biden's argument that state voter laws amount to Jim Crow 2.0 and are disenfranchising poor and minority voters. Most voters don't see cleaning outdated names from the voter rolls or requiring IDs to cast ballots as obstacles to the ballot box, like Biden argued in Monday's speech. The polling may also help to explain why several centrist Democrats, like Senators Joe Manchin of West Virginia, John Tester of Montana, and Kyrsten Sinema and Mark Kelly of Arizona, are resisting efforts to change the Senate's filibuster rules so Democrat voting legislation can pass with a simple majority and not the 60 votes currently required. So there's a lot of stuff that's moving and shaking with this. There's a lot of stuff that's going along with this, and yes, that's a big part of this is, national Democrats are trying to pass laws to ban voter ID on all state levels, in spite of the fact that Article 2, Section 1 puts this directly and firmly onto the states. Always has. But it's always the perennial argument, too, through all this, and let's all Jim Crow this and Jim Crow that. Like, voter rolls. That's a big one. Purge the voter rolls. That's a perennial argument in this state. And we should be purging the voter rolls. We should absolutely be purging the voter rolls. Well, if we purge the voting rolls, then it's just going to make it harder for people to vote. Why do you want to make it harder for people to vote? How does that make it harder for people to vote? We have same-day registration in Wisconsin. With your ID, you can walk up to the counter and say, this is my address. See? This is my valid ID with my address on it. This is my district. This is my precinct. Give me a ballot. I'm registering to vote right now. But yes, to get the dead people off of the voter rolls, I think they should be purged after every midterm election. After every other year. After every election day in an even-numbered year. Purge out all the voter rolls. Get rid of them all. Start over. But every time I do that, I get accused of trying to disenfranchise people from voting. But this does not play well with Black America. As much as they try to tell you that it does, this does not play well with Black America. Alright, let's grab one here from NPR. Gorsuch didn't wear masks despite Sotomayor's COVID worries, leading her to telework. This is from Nina Totenberg. And make sure that you're donating. Because NPR needs your money. They need our money, comrade, to make sure that they can continue to tell you that voter ID is racist. Because you might not believe it unless they tell you continually. And tell you in a soft, slow voice. So make sure you donate, because they need our money, comrade. Remember, NPR, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what they have to say. It was pretty jarring earlier this month when the justices of the U.S. Supreme Court took to the bench for the first time since the Irma Gerd surge over the holidays. All were now wearing masks, all that is except for Neil Gorsuch. What's more, Sonia Sotomayor was not there at all, choosing instead to participate through a microphone set up in her chambers. Sotomayor has diabetes, a condition that puts her at high risk for serious illness or even death from the pinko pox. She has been the only justice to wear a mask on the bench since last fall when, amid a marked decline in the pinko pox cases, the justices resumed in-person arguments for the first time since the onset of the pandemic. Now, though, the situation had changed. With the Irma Gerd surge, according to court sources, Sotomayor didn't feel safe in close proximity to people who were unmasked. Chief Justice John Roberts, understanding that, in some form, asked the other justices to mask up. They all did, except Gorsuch, who, as it happens, sits next to Sotomayor on the bench. His continued refusal since then has also meant that Sotomayor has not attended the justices' weekly conference in person, joining instead by telephone. Gorsuch, from the beginning of his tenure, has proved a prickly justice, not exactly beloved, even by his conservative soulmates on the court. At his first sitting in 2017, he sought to dominate the argument and repeatedly suggested that a complex case involving conflicting provisions was really very simple. Wouldn't it be easier if we just followed the plain text of the statute? He asked over and over again, what am I missing? A lot, and his colleagues, both liberal and conservative. This is unbelievably complicated, lamented conservative Justice Samuel Alito. Whoever wrote the statute must be someone who takes pleasure tearing the wings off flies, he said, provoking loud snickers on the bench. Yeah, well, there's some things to that too. Now, as far as masking on the floor, it is a government building. The government does have rules for this. I don't agree with it. Again, that seems to be the theme off of all of this. I don't agree with the fact that these rules are there, but they are there. As far as Gorsuch goes, it doesn't do anything. I'll give you that. I will absolutely give you the fact that it doesn't do a goddamn thing. But it might be time to sit down and have the conversation of, okay, do we feed into them? To bring Sotomayor back in here, masked and everything, and then see what happens when the mask doesn't do anything and she gets something anyway. On top of that, too, by the way, all 9 of these members are tested daily. At least weekly, but I believe it's daily. So they all get a PCR test jammed up their fucking nose every single day. Shouldn't that be enough of a proof of, hey, nobody's got it? I would think so. Let's grab one for Above the Law, making fun of Neil Gorsuch, because that's what they have to do. Neil Gorsuch's call for civility was just always for show. From Catherine Rubino. This information probably does not surprise Supreme Court watchers, like even a little bit, but Neil Gorsuch is a real jerk of a coworker. Folks have noted that since the Ermagerd COVID surge, Neil Gorsuch was the only Supreme Court justice not to mask up during oral arguments, and we've also noted that Sonia Sotomayor, who has type 1 diabetes and is over 65, both risk factors for COVID complications, was participating in court business virtually. Turns out you're 100% correct to assume those facts are related, and Gorsuch has refused to mask up despite being specifically asked to do so by the Chief Justice, as reported earlier today by Nina Totenberg. Now, though the situation has changed with the Ermagerd surge, and according to court sources, Sotomayor did not feel safe in close proximity to people who were unmasked, Chief Justice John Roberts, understanding that, in some form, asked the other justices to mask up. They all did, except Gorsuch, who, as it happens, sits next to Sotomayor on the bench. His continued refusal since then has also meant that Sotomayor has not attended Justice's weekly conference in person, joining instead by telephone. Now Gorsuch is trending on Twitter as his asshole status comes into focus. Which is interesting, by the way, because this is also probably one of the first times that he's been specifically name-called as one of Evil Orange Man's nominees. Which he was, but he kind of slipped under the radar a little bit there because, I mean, for the most part, he has been a constitutionalist off of this and not a real outspoken person, as much as Above the Law is trying to say this, that he's this big outspoken asshole. He has kind of slipped in under the radar under most things at this point. But he's an evil orange man justice, so now that he's got to get his turn too. Let's do a little bit of forward news about the shot. Moderna no longer used to vaccinate under 31s. From Lauren Walker of the Brussels Times. A very rare side effect among under 31s of the Moderna vaccine meant that Belgium stopped using this vaccine last month for the first 2 vaccine doses of people in this age group. Younger people can still receive the vaccine for their booster shot, a half dose rather than a full one, but Pfizer's vaccine is now recommended for the first 2 doses for all people below the age of 31, based on the advice of the Superior Health Council. The decision for the basic vaccination of 18 to 30-year-olds is based on the international knowledge of possible side effects that are very rare. We took this decision as a precaution, Gundren Briat, the spokesperson for the Vaccinated Task Force, told the Brussels Times. Preliminary findings from the Danish research indicated that vaccination from Moderna resulted in an increased risk of inflammation of the heart muscle in young men following the first or second dose in comparison with the Pfizer vaccine. Usually inflammation is harmless and goes away without being noticed, but if there is an alternative, the vaccine available, it makes more sense not to take any risks, Briat said. She stressed that younger people who were not given the vaccine for their basic vaccination should not worry, especially if they received the shots months ago. This side effect manifests itself in a maximum of 2 months after the vaccination. Some countries extended the age limit on Moderna for booster doses as well, but so far there's no evidence that this side effect for half doses, according to reports from Die Standard. Which I believe, didn't Europe ban the AstraZeneca for the same reason, that they were having nerve problems, muscle problems, and heart problems with that one as well. So now we're actually starting to get some of the long-term effects off of this thing, and I mean, it's not looking good. And as always, my advice to everybody is if you want this thing and you can assess the risk and decide it's still worth it to you, go and get the thing. And if you can't, then don't go and get the thing. But this is all stuff that I would have loved to know about back in November of last year already. Hey, there's a chance that there could be some heart issue, some inflammation, something somewhere. Let me use that to assess my level of risk. And we never got anything like that. So that's what we see coming from that. Let's grab one from Markets Insider. El Salvador's president hits back on Twitter after rating agency Moody's issues warning over its Bitcoin buying. From Isabel Lee. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele hit back on Twitter on Sunday in response to a warning from rating agency Moody's over the Central American country's Bitcoin investments. The 40-year-old president tweeted, "Breaking, El Salvador don't give a fuck." Bukele was responding to a tweet on Sunday regarding the warning Moody's issued last week about the risk its Bitcoin trading poses to sovereign credit rating. The rating agency told Bloomberg on January 13th that El Salvador's Bitcoin holdings certainly add to the risk of portfolio, especially for a government that's been struggling with liquidity pressures in the past. El Salvador has about 1,391 Bitcoins in its coffers, according to a Bloomberg analysis. If it gets much higher, then that represents an even greater risk to repayment capacity and the fiscal profile of the issuer, Moody's said. In July of last year, Moody's downgraded the country's credit rating to CAA1, which reflects a very high risk of default on debts. The rating agency cited a challenged redemption schedule and a deterioration in the quality of the policymaking as its reasoning for the downgrade. El Salvador's aggressive Bitcoin buying spree, particularly in moments when the coin's prices dip, began in September of 2021 when the Central American nation adopted the cryptocurrency as legal tender, making it the first country in the world to elevate Bitcoin to that status. The landmark move propelled Bukele to fame, especially among the crypto crowd. Supporters of his move to push El Salvador to the bleeding edge of crypto include ARK Invest CEO Cathie Wood, who told Time magazine on Sunday that Bukele's Bitcoin push has given the citizens financial opportunities they didn't have before. Global financial institutions such as International Monetary Fund and Wall Street banks such as JP Morgan, however, were less optimistic. Recent drops in Bitcoin have cost El Salvador around $10 million, Bloomberg estimates. Bitcoin was trading at $41,536 as of Tuesday afternoon in New York, approximately 40% lower than its record high of $69,000 last November. So, as far as a legal tender for the country, I mean, if that's what you want to do and you can convince your citizens it's a good idea and they all vote for it and say yes, then what's to stop it? I mean, you can sit back there and mine it for all but free off geothermal energy. It's not like you're coming out here right now and begging and demanding for fossilized fuels or something like that to come back and run your mining rigs, your mining operations. You're doing most everything off of geothermal in your country. So you're in the best position to do so. Yes, it's a risk. Anything out there that's decentralized is always going to be a risk. That is something that's going to be out there. But, I mean, if El Salvador can pull it off and don't default on their debts and don't start a war in the region because of it, then I don't see a problem here. I really don't. But the big banks hate that because it's a decentralized currency that they don't control. And if El Salvador steps out of line, they can't jump in and sanction the shit out of them either. From Fox Business, Starbucks, Chipotle among companies reducing operational hours due to staffing shortages. From Andrew Mark Miller again. Companies across the country are announcing plans to cut hours of operation due to staffing shortages as the country deals with a record surge of coronavirus cases, vaccine mandates, and supply chain issues. McDonald's says it's cut operational hours by 10% in response to lack of employees at a number of U.S. locations. The Golden Arches, similar to many restaurants around the country, have struggled with consistent employee attendance during the surge brought by the Omicron variant. With the infections reaching record levels, the entire restaurant industry has suffered a dip in sales at the end of December. Coffee giant Starbucks is also having a difficult time finding workers and announced this week that customers may experience reduced hours, a lack of specific products, or a temporary halt on mobile orders and payment options at some locations. "You have our commitment to make the situation right," the company told customers on Friday. "We will always make proactive decisions that prioritize the health and well-being of our customers and our partners." Fast food chain El Pollo Loco is experiencing a staffing crunch as well, and the company leadership says labor shortages negatively affected sales by 5 to 6% points in the fourth quarter. "I hope it gets better, but I'm not sure it's going to get a lot better real fast," he said during a recent conference. "Again, next year I think it'll get better and better, but I think our longer term, this is something restaurant companies are going to have to deal with." The Wall Street Journal reported this week that Chipotle, Shake Shack, and Kura Sushi are also having difficulty staying open as long as they would like, due to staffing issues. "No one is immune to it," said Shake Shack chief executive Randy Rudy told investors at a recent conference. So that's what we see coming off of that. Then, the McDonald's in Janesville isn't 24 hours anymore. I don't think the one in Newville is 24 hours anymore, to be completely honest. I don't think any of them are. Not around this area, at least. Some of the gas stations I see are closing up. The ones on the interstate are usually staying open. The Taco John's in Newville doesn't open up. I don't think they're open at all anymore. So there's a lot of stuff sitting here moving, and yeah, you're going to start to lose some of the service in some of the places. And it's sad. Alright, but apparently who is doing well? Microsoft and Activision Blizzard. We talked about this yesterday during Twitter trending. Microsoft to acquire Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion. From Tom Warren. Microsoft is acquiring Activision, the troubled publisher of Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Diablo. The deal will value Activision at $68.7 billion, far in excess of the $26 billion Microsoft paid to acquire LinkedIn in 2016. Oh, I thought LinkedIn was Facebook. It's Microsoft's biggest push into gaming, and the company says it will be the third largest gaming company by revenue behind Tencent and Sony once the deal closes. Microsoft plans to add many of Activision's games to Xbox Game Pass. Once the deal closes with the acquisition of Activision, Microsoft will soon publish franchises like Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, Call of Duty, Candy Crush. Upon close, we will offer as many Activision Blizzard games as we can within Xbox Game Pass and PC Game Pass, both new titles and games from Activision Blizzard's incredible catalog, says Microsoft CEO of Gaming Phil Spencer. Xbox Game Pass now has 25 million subscribers as Microsoft continues to acquire studios to boost the subscription service. We're investing deeply in world-class content, community, and the cloud to usher a new era of gaming that puts players and creators first and makes gaming safe, inclusive, and accessible to all, says Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Microsoft's deal comes after months of sexual harassment claims against Activision Blizzard. Last July, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing sued Activision for promoting a culture of constant sexual harassment. More employees have come forward with more allegations of sexual misconduct ever since. And the company reached an $18 million settlement in the U.S. Equal Opportunity Employment Commission in September. That settlement is being appealed, and reports indicate that nearly 40 Activision Blizzard employees reportedly exited the company since last July. Microsoft doesn't detail how exactly it will approach solving these issues, and the company says Bobby Kotick will continue to serve as CEO of Activision Blizzard for now. It looks like Kotick won't remain once the deal is fully closed and after the transition period to Microsoft, though. Spencer, formerly head of gaming at Microsoft, is now CEO of Microsoft Gaming, and the company says Activision Blizzard businesses will report directly to Spencer. I have mixed feelings about this. First off, Microsoft doesn't detail how they will approach solving these issues. They're going to pay off everybody who was involved with this and slap them with a non-disclosure agreement. And more money than they can refuse is what they're going to do. That's not going to go anywhere. Everybody's going to be protected at this point. Microsoft's huge Activision Blizzard deal comes nearly a year after the company acquired Bethesda, ZeniMax Media, for $7.5 billion. At the time, the acquisition bolstered the company's first-party Xbox game studio to a total of 23 and was seen as a huge boost for Xbox Game Pass. Now, and once again, I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I mean, maybe we'll get a new StarCraft game out of this. Maybe it'll be FPS. I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe we'll get a decent Diablo game out of it. I'm not sure. Or maybe it'll all get completely cucked and wiped out. I wouldn't mind seeing a decent Diablo game come out of this. Because since the Activision takeover, I mean, Blizzard franchises have just sucked, and they focused everything on Call of Duty and Destiny 2. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Got just a couple more, then we'll do something I'm thankful for, and then I've got, for the first time in weeks, I've got to go back to work. Not weeks, days. It seems like weeks. From Fox 6 Milwaukee, third ward shooting, nurse Shake Shack workers helped officer. From Cassidy Williams. An off-duty Milwaukee police detective was shot and injured Thursday. Give me a second. As he tried to stop an armed robbery in the city's historic third ward. The detective sustained life-threatening injuries, but was listed in stable condition that night. A travel nurse treated him before the ambulance arrived, and she told Fox 6 News about what she saw. Lindsay Adams went to Shake Shack near the water in Buffalo. When she saw the officer fighting with the suspect through the window, she then heard gunshots and ran into the restaurant to help rather than turning around and going home. Despite her fear, Adams took action when she saw someone injured inside the restaurant. That someone turned out to be the off-duty detective. It was completely frightened, completely terrified, Adams said. He's just bleeding, you can tell, very pale and out of it. Investigators say the detective intervened when he saw the suspect trying to rob a woman. When trying to make the arrest, police said the suspect shot the detective several times. Then all of a sudden you hear a gunshot, so at that point, all I did was duck down behind the SUV, said Adams. When the gunshot stopped, Adams said instincts from 15 years as a nurse kicked in. She treated the detective with the help of some Shake Shack employees until help arrived. I do this for a living. I actually do love it. I have a true love for nursing altogether, said Adams. All the workers had were aprons, so all these employees took off their aprons and gave them to us so we could hold pressure on his wounds. Adams said she wants people to focus on how everyone came together to help the officer instead of on the suspects. Don't give up on your city. Don't give up on your people. People are good regardless if bad situations happen. We still have so many more good to that bad, said Adams. And apparently they got the suspects too. An 18-year-old man and a 17-year-old boy were taken into custody. Charges have not yet been filed. Yes, and good on people for jumping in and taking action. It would have been easy, especially in that neighborhood. To hear a gunshot and just keep walking, walk away. I know where this is. In that neighborhood, if you hear a gunshot, you don't get involved. You just stop and you leave. And this woman did something else instead and saved a life. Good on her. From the Capitol Hill Seattle blog. Seattle Police Chief, no more stops for low-risk traffic violations like expired tabs, biking without a helmet. No author given. Responding to concerns about equity and disproportionate enforcement, Seattle Police will no longer make stops over traffic issues like expired tabs or riding a bicycle without a helmet. In a decision announced heading into the MLK Day weekend, Chief Adrian Diaz said the new direction, prioritizing non-criminal, low-risk public safety traffic violations, comes after discussions involving a multiple disciplinary working group convened by the Office of Inspector General to review city, county, and state ordinances and emerging reforms in other cities. These violations do not have a direct connection to the safety of other individuals on the roads, paths, or sidewalks, Diaz wrote in his letter to the OIG advising on his decision to follow some of the working group's recommendations. We know that there are also reasons for concern that these violations may disproportionately fall on those who are unable to meet the financial requirements set forth by law. Under the new directive, SPD will no longer make stops based solely on expired tabs, improperly displayed license plates, or technical violations like items hanging from your rearview mirrors or cracked windshields. Bicycle helmet violations will no longer be enforced, though likely arrests could be part of a secondary enforcement if there's a primary violation cited. Equipment violations like burnt-out taillights will continue to be enforced, Diaz said, due to safety concerns. The working group had included a recommendation that all equipment violations should be deprioritized. The enforcement change follows evidence of hugely disproportionate enforcement of these traffic laws in the city. Crosscut reported in 2020 that nearly half of Seattle's helmet citations were handed out to homeless people. Philadelphia, meanwhile, became the first major U.S. city to prohibit traffic stops in October due to studies showing police target black drivers at disproportionately higher rates. Diaz's move, for now, puts the department out in front of any similar legislation effort in Seattle. So, there are a few things that are with this. Now, yes, we do understand. I think most of us understand that if you're pulled over driving down the road for a seatbelt, you're not actually being pulled over for a seatbelt. Nobody gives a fuck whether or not you're wearing your seatbelt. But this gives the officer, the attendant officer, an opportunity to come in and search your car, check your driver's license, make sure that you're not going to, well, make sure that you're driving on a good driver's license, make sure that your license isn't suspended, make sure that you didn't steal the car, make sure there are no weapons around there. They can do a little precursory search without a warrant and say, hey, do you have any drugs in here? Do you have any of this, that, the next thing? We all know that a lot of this is all a precursor for this. And yes, unfortunately, there is, especially in some bigger cities like that, a disproportionate effect of going after black people over white people. Yes, it happens. And yes, they are doing this absolutely because of racism. The perceived racism off of this. If I was sheriff, and I've debated about running for sheriff in Rock County here, if I was sheriff, my department wouldn't pull you over for any traffic stop, license violation, or anything else like that. Not because I want to do something disproportionate for blacks, Hispanics, or otherwise off of this, just because I don't believe in those laws. Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. By the way, if you're out speeding and driving like an idiot, like a moron, and you do have a problem somewhere and you get in an accident and you destroy someone else's property, you will be taken into the full custody of the law because you did hurt somebody else's stuff, or hurt somebody else in that matter. So the trade-off is you won't get popped for just regular driving around excessive speed, but if you hurt somebody, well, kiss your friends and family goodbye, because by the time we're done with you, you're going to be going away for a long, long time. But that's not what they're doing here. They're looking at this and they're finding a way to say, hey, our police are being completely racist. What can we do to stop this? The sentiment is there, but it's all a virtue signal at this point. So that's what we see off of that. All right, and the last one, because it's California, and it's time for a lot of these people to get out of there too. And a lot more of them are going to, but because a lot more of them are going to, California's got to put the squeeze down on more people. From Fox Business, California weighing proposal that could double its taxes. From Megan Henney. California lawmakers unveiled a new bill at the beginning of this year, that would establish a single-payer healthcare system, an ambitious plan that would be funded by nearly doubling the state's already high taxes. A new analysis from the Tax Foundation, a nonpartisan group that generally advocates for lower taxes, found that the proposed constitutional amendment would increase taxes by roughly $12,250 per household in order to fund the first-of-its-kind healthcare system in all. The tax increases are designed to raise an additional $163 billion a year, which is more than California raised in total tax revenue in a year before the pandemic. The proposal includes three main revenue raisers, including, according to Jared Walczak, a fellow at the Tax Foundation, a higher income taxes on wealthy Americans, a payroll tax on certain employees' wages for large companies, and a new gross receipts tax. Under the bill, the top marginal rate on wage would soar to 18.05%, well above the median top marginal rate of 5.3%, and the state's existing rate of 12.3%. There would be an 18-bracket system with higher taxes kicking in for individuals earning more than $149,509. Well, that's like making 20 grand in the rest of the country if you're in California. The highest rate would apply to those who earn more than $2,484,121, or approximately 50 grand in cost of living costs in the rest of the country. Here is a closer look at how the tax system would be structured based on individual income. 2.25% at 0, 3.25% up to 93.24. I think that's where it starts. 5.25 at 22.106, 7.25 at 34.891, 9.25 at 48.434, 10.25 at 49.9, 11.55 at 61.213, 12.05 at 299.509, 13.05 for married couples. This applies to income of 599.13. 13.55 is 312.865. 14.55 at 375.220. And then, going all the way up to 18.05 at 24.84.121. California would also expand the payroll tax by employees who earn more than $49,990 in annual income if they work for a company that has more than 50 workers. Walczak noted the plan could deter small businesses from expanding by inadvertently creating a tax cliff. For instance, if a company had 49 workers earning $80,000 each hired, one additional employee, they would suddenly create a tax bill of more than $90,000. Finally, the state would also adopt a new 2.3% gross receipts tax on qualified businesses minus the first $2 million annual gross receipts, a rate of more than 3 times that of the country's current highest GRT. Gee, it sounds like you're trying to disincentivize having businesses come to California. Why would you want to do a thing like that, I wonder? Especially now that California's going out to single payer. So, there you go. There's your taxes for California, right there. That's a lot of fucking money. On top of a state that's already taxed to fucking death. So, that's what we see coming out of that. And with that, we're done. And the last thing that we do on a Wednesday is something that I'm thankful for. And I'm looking back, and I know Ron yesterday kind of called me out over saying that, I hadn't interacted with people for a week, and I really hadn't. In person is different from online, I'll say that. But I am thankful for you guys who've been here through the entire thing. And I know it was probably a lot lower energy during Contemporary the last week than I have been this week and in weeks prior to this too, because I mean, I had a week of just these awful, mild symptoms, just enough to remind you that you're tired, that you don't want to do anything, and you can't really go outside at all. Because, I mean, it's cold, you can't go for a run. You can't go indoors, you can't go to the gym, so. But we're all done. We're all through here. Now I've got the natural immunity myself, so that'll be fun. I have a little bit that's going on in my nose still, which that's got to go get blown at this point as soon as we head out of here, so. But I am thankful for the people who've been around me through this, who've called, checked on me, made sure. I've had Twitter messages, I've had texts, I've had phone calls, so. I mean, you guys all knew what was up, and hey, I've even lost a little bit of weight off of this, so. I also lost my debit card. I fell off the dashboard of my, or not the dashboard, but the console of my truck. It fell off of there, and now I can't find the fucking thing, so I have to go get another one of those. But yeah, that's what we see coming off of that. Let's head out of here for the day, so. And thank you guys for helping me out through the rest of this and keeping me going. Let's throw some music up and head out of here. So thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat here. I'm going to head out of here for the day. I'm going back to work for the first time in 10 days. In 10 days, I'm going back to, I haven't been to work. I'm going back, and I'm going to see what kind of clusterfuck they have going on around there. But we'll be back here tomorrow with more Contemporary. I don't know how organized it's going to be, because I don't know if I'm going to make it all the way till 10 tonight, trying to get everything processed, but we'll see how it goes, and we'll see what goes from there. And we'll be back here for that and more news headlines, 7:30 a.m. Eastern, or Central Time, rather. We will see you guys then, and until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.